Thank you for listening to another new episode of Little Eyes, Big Topics. Dr. Maria Stunkel hosts this episode commemorating World Orthoptic Day. She invites two orthoptists, Laura May and Kim Merrill, to share their insights into their experiences helping eye care physicians treat patients.
Welcome to Little Eyes, Big Topics, an APOS podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts today. My name is Maria Stunkel. I'm a pediatric ophthalmologist at a community hospital in St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm joined by my co-host and fellow Digital Education Committee of APOS member, Laura May.
Hi, I'm Laura May. I'm an orthoptist at the University of Minnesota.
And today we welcome Kim Merrill as our guest today. We are celebrating World Orthoptic Day. So our topic today is going to be orthoptics. Now, Kim Merrill is an orthoptist at the University of Minnesota. She is the Orthoptic Fellowship Director, and she has been doing that for 23 years, helping train orthoptic fellows, pediatric ophthalmologist and neuro-ophthalmology fellows and residents during this time. She's the past president of the American Orthoptic Council. She was the first orthoptist to be president of the AOC, and she also serves as the APOS representative to the AOC. She has been on the APOS program, vision screening, and ad hoc committees. She is also very active with the American Association for Certified Orthoptists, or the AACO, serving as registration chair, program committee, SCOBY committee, Lancaster committee, nomination committees, and their education committee. She has experience volunteering with Orbis, the Special Olympics, and school vision screening programs. Wow, that is impressive. So welcome, Kim. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Maria. I'm excited to be here to celebrate World Orthoptic Day.
We have APOS members listening, but a broader audience as well. So why don't we just start by discussing, what is orthoptics and how did you both learn about this profession?
I found out about it from a friend of a friend of a friend type of story who was an occupational therapist. And she had a client or a patient that would see an orthoptist as well. And she knew I was interested in the eye care field and thought this would fit well with what I had in mind for my future training. And I went and observed with an orthoptist in Chicago and I really enjoyed it.
I didn't know anyone who knew of any orthoptists when I was looking into different eye care programs. Myself, I was interested in anything related to eye. I stumbled upon orthoptics via a Google search, of course, and I found that Kim Merrill had a program at the University of Minnesota. I reached out to her, observed, and was lucky enough to be one of her students.
Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely a very specialized field. And I'll have to say for myself that it wasn't until I was in medical school that I heard of an orthoptist. So, but that's great that you both entered into this wonderful field. And now I'm just curious, can you describe a typical day in the life? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
We see all types of patients we see ROP patients to adult patients that need prisms and glasses or need surgery. So we work with pediatric ophthalmologists and neuro-ophthalmologists, mostly in our positions that we have. We also have our own orthoptic clinic. Most days we see orthoptic patients where we either are following amblyopia or doing pre-surgical measurements or following intermittent XTs for stability or treatment as well.
And then what about you, Laura? You're a little bit newer to the field of orthoptics, but do you have your own patient clinics as well?
I do. Yep. We actually share our orthoptic clinics. Every day we work with the same set of providers who are in clinic with us. And alongside that, our provider clinics, we have orthoptic clinic. So the orthoptist that's available will see the patients who are there.
That's great. And what type of day would you say is your favorite? Is it helping out with your MDs in the clinic? Do you like the adult patients? What would be your favorite go-to day?
I like a mixture of Of all of it. I would really hate a day where I saw all adults. That would be really trying, I think. But some
Very
days,
challenging.
very challenging. But some days, seeing 2-year-olds all day would be very challenging as well. So I like to have a mixture of all different ages and different types of disease too. So I don't want to be fitting Fresnel prisms on somebody all day long either, which is sometimes takes a lot of patience too.
A
Um,
ton of patience that I
yes.
don't have.
Yes. That's why we do it for you, right?
That's why we love orthoptists.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with Kim on that. I like the variety of patients that we see. And, typically every day it is a good variety of, adults and children. And I really enjoy having the opportunity to have our orthoptic clinic as well. So we can really get to know our patients one on one and, be there for them when they have questions or concerns if they can't reach the MD, and just kind of really build a great rapport with our patients who are, coming back to see us pretty frequently. I would say, especially for like amblyopia checks or strabismus checks.
Yeah, definitely. So, Laura, I think you answered this a little bit, but besides just the clinical role, what are some other roles that orthoptists can have, maybe as an extender for their pediatric or neuro-ophthalmologist, that's very important? Is there any role for like helping with some surgeries, or what have you all seen?
I think there's different roles that we can play. Definitely helping with surgery is something that orthoptists can easily step into. I know a lot of us help with adjustable sutures that are in clinic already. So taking another step further into the operating room is something that's doable. I'm sure there would be some extra training that would be needed that the hospital probably could provide. We do a lot of the triage and pre and post operative care of our surgeons' patients too. So that's a good place for orthoptists to step into. And I know a lot of orthoptists out there that are office managers. And we also do a lot of the teaching where we teach not only residents, orthoptic fellows, pediatric or neuro-ophthalmology fellows, but we also teach technicians in the clinic that are working with our pediatric optometrists and with us too. And those are big time, consuming roles that orthoptists could easily step into.
And we both have adjunct assistant professorship at the University of Minnesota. And so we're involved with research with the residents, with the MDs here, as well as, outreach for teaching the residents, fellows, and then, of course, the orthoptic students that we have in clinic.
Yeah, these are definitely great points. And I know that for the residents listening out there, I think we've all kind of benefited at some point, just because the pediatric exam can be so intimidating. We benefit from orthoptists greatly. So there are some pediatric ophthalmologists that will be out there listening, and maybe they don't have the benefit of working with an orthoptist. And of course, there's a lot of great benefits in terms of increasing clinic efficiency, and of course that triage component, or fitting prisms, things that are very time consuming. So what advice would you have for those providers that are having resistance, maybe from their healthcare organizations or their employers, or maybe they're in private practice and just don't know how to incorporate that into their practice?
There's a good paper that was published by Aaron Miller in the American Orthoptic Journal, probably in 2017, where he looked at, what percentage of patient increased numbers you could see and how much revenue an orthoptist would have to your clinic. And he came up with a number around $71,000 that an orthoptist could make as a revenue for that practice. So I think that's an incredible number that you can always bring to any, even private practice, saying, this is what will help me the most. I can do more surgery, and an orthoptist can see my pre and post ops and do their own orthoptic clinic and see patients on their own, and also help with all these other things that I have in the clinic. So I think it's just a matter of looking at those numbers and looking at what the practice has in mind and what the needs are.
That's a great point. And then, Kim, just to clarify, I think I know the paper you're talking about. The $71,000, I believe that was in addition to like the salary for an orthoptist. So this was revenue on top of what you're already paying that orthoptist.
Yeah, correct. I think he based it on a salary paying an orthoptist $85,000 a year. And then he also incorporated like office space that the orthoptist would need. And then the revenue from orthoptic visits and the revenue from additional surgeries that having an orthoptist on staff would free up the time of the surgeon as well.
Sure. Yeah. So sounds like a no-brainer to me.
Absolutely.
However, seeing visits, it's great to have that physician extender role, but I know some providers also have some difficulty making the argument because a lot of states differ, or there's a lot of states don't have orthoptists licensed to practice on their own. So what's some of the, is there anything up and coming in terms of orthoptists becoming licensed to practice on their own?
This is a great question and great timing for your question. Currently, there are no states that have a orthoptist that's licensed, and I think it's a hard road for us to pave because there's so few of us, and it's really expensive to do. And I think each state has so few orthoptists that some of them have zero and some of them have one or two. So it's really hard to create a state board licensure based on the number of orthoptists that might be in each state. I think where it really differs is insurance companies more than anything, whether the insurance company is willing to recognize the coding and the codes that are made for us to get reimbursed by. Because we all see patients under the hospice of an ophthalmologist, and we work under the license of an ophthalmologist. So we have oversight, which is one of the things that states look at for licensure. Is this, are people doing harm to patients or not harm to patients, and who's overseeing the work that they do? And all orthoptists out there obviously work under an ophthalmologist, and that's the oversight that they see. So I think licensure is a hard road to path for us. Hopefully, in the future, if we have larger numbers, we might be able to afford it, and it might bridge that gap with billing that we have a problem doing in some states, but it might not. It might not make a huge impact. I don't know. It depends.
So Kim, in your roles with the AACO and the AOC, have there been any strides, any thoughts in terms of the best strategy on this licensing issue?
Yes, we've tried to get licensure in about 4 states currently. One what came close was Missouri, just so you know. And that was the kind of the furthest we got, was speaking to a state representative who was going to take it to the floor. And then we just kind of got ghosted and we're never heard from again. And we wrote letters to the state representative and tried to contact him again, and we never heard anything back. Another state was Vermont, and then another was Iowa. And then in Minnesota, I've also tried to make some headway, but I've always been, stopped as well because of the fact that we work under a licensed ophthalmologist. And the other big thing they told me was our scope of practice fit with what the optometrists were already doing under their scope of practice in Minnesota state law. So it wasn't necessarily that we were a group of professionals that needed to be licensed because someone else was already practicing what our scope of practice was.
I see. So I mean, I think there definitely is still work to do, and more recently there's been increased attention on the fact that there really is a lack of pediatric ophthalmologists and or ophthalmologists, both of whom orthoptists work with. So potentially that could be a different vantage point. How do you feel that orthoptists could fill this role? Because it seems like this is becoming a really big issue, this lack of providers within the US.
Yeah, that is a huge concern of ours because obviously you are our employer. And so we feel like we can bridge that gap with patient care, and we can increase the numbers that an ophthalmologist can see, and we can also see those patients as well. And so, a huge problem that we always have is maintaining the number of orthoptists that are out there as well. And we want to do our best to train the most competent orthoptists that we know will provide excellent care. And I think having the support of APOS and AAO is also really pertinent to those goals that we can achieve to maintain or gain licensure in the States.
And now, switching gears just a little bit, just kind of focusing on some of the trainees that may be listening, maybe even some pre-med students. So, Kim, you serve as the director for an orthoptic training program, and that's kind of how Laura, found out about the field as well and got involved. Can you tell me a little bit more about like how? And you mentioned that there's not that many orthoptists out there, but how many programs like this are available, and if someone is interested in orthoptics, how would they learn more about it?
hmm Currently, there's 17 orthoptic fellowship programs in the United States, which is great numbers. Our numbers keep increasing. Almost every year, we've had a new program. The most current one is Bascom Palmer in Miami. So we're excited that that program just opened and will be accepting its first students soon. And I think the thing to think about is going to observe with an orthoptist and seeing what the day is like and what types of patients we see. Is this something that people are interested in doing and having that type of patient care and follow through?
That's awesome. So 17 and going strong, which is
Yes.
great to hear. That's great news in terms of filling this growing need for providing access to care, specifically for pediatric patients that need eye care, competent eye care. So, just in closing, happy World Orthoptic Day to the both of you. Anything else you would like to share in terms of your experience as an orthoptist? How are you guys going to be celebrating this holiday?
Well, usually, as people know orthoptists, we do like to celebrate everything. So I'm hoping everyone out there has a day of celebration planned. And I hope APOS members will take time to celebrate and promote their orthoptists or look into orthoptics if they don't have an orthoptist hired. I think the partnership that we have with our ophthalmologist is kind of a key to healthcare down the future, because this is kind of how you see most professions going is you have a physician that works either with a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant. And so I think having an ophthalmologist with an orthoptist is a great pairing, and it'll help our healthcare needs down the road.
Thank you, Kim, so much for joining us. And to all the listeners, please share this episode with individuals that might be interested in orthoptics, and continue to listen into our podcast.